Okay, so I'm gonna wait around a little bit before folks roll in, and then we can get started. Zoop. 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 So basically, what I want to do in this stream, I like wrote it over there in the title. Working on like Shmup-Style weapon power-ups. So I mean, if you've played any like shmuppy kind of game, like I've been playing Battle Mania, which is like a Mega Drive shmup. You'll be like shooting, you have your like normal shooter, but then there will be the occasional, it'll fly across the screen like weapon power up. You pick that up, some like fun VO drops in and it goes power up, and then you like now you're shooting like 2 bullets at a time, or maybe now you're shooting them at like an angle. And then you pick up another one and it goes power up, and then like now you've got 3 bullets, right? And like they kind of stack like that, and like maybe you stack up different types of bullets, or like you are intentionally choosing to stack certain types and not other types. And so, and like you basically keep that until a combo breaks, like until you either like die and respawn, or until, I guess in our game it would just you take damage, because it's not like one hit kills for us. Um, so like basically, yeah, that's the like main idea, is that I want to have additional power ups, which like will basically cause your basic blaster to like go from like a 1 shooter to a 2 shooter to a 3 shooter until you take damage. And I think that like increases the skill ceiling on the game, because it gives you more of an incentive, like not just to like run and gun and not care that much about minor damage because there's so much health around, but that actually like you want to avoid taking damage because you can keep a more powerful blaster. And if there's like a big clump of enemies, maybe you want to power up your blaster first so that you can dispatch them faster, but you're also taking a risk by doing that because an errant shot can like take you back down again. So like players who have become skillful will be really good at that sort of thing, and so they can move through the level faster. Whereas like players who haven't picked up on that, like or just learning, like they might struggle a little bit more. And so basically, yeah, like you'll be able to differentiate people that way. Anyway, let's make a. Started taking some notes earlier, but let's make a. Oop, is my like chat thing getting kind of cut off? Maybe I can. There we go. Oh, but now I'm not showing off my cool shirt. Everyone notice my cool shirt? It's like Anamigo has done like a Blu-ray release for Bubblegum Crisis, so they had a fun limited time shirt for that. Silent W says, have you considered looking at a system like Battle Garegas, where the weapons, sub-weapons, and bombs are all on a system like that? No, I haven't. Let's here, I'll just open a little window here. Let's take a look at what you're talking about. So, also, hello Silent W, welcome to the chat. So, what was that? Battle Garega. Full game. Yeah, this really looks like a shmup. This game is for use in Nippon only. Okay, yeah, this is like, whatchamacallit, Spy Hunter. So yeah, the weapons, sub-weapons, and bombs are all in a system like that. Yeah, this is basically like what I'm sort of like evoking, right? Because like our game isn't like quite a shmup, but I want to see like how many shmup like elements like that we can add. Meantime, let me just fix this. I got my monitors all in a weird way, but let me see if I can fix the chat thing that's getting cut off. This one, show border, drag it down a little bit, hide border again. Okay, that's great. Cool. So yeah, I think basically, let me open up a little text file here, and we'll make a checklist of the things that we have to do. So the first thing is to like actually add a like weapon level like status effect to the player. So like I want the player to track what their current weapon level is. And I think I've already got like stuff for like picking up and losing money. So I'm basically, you know, we're just going to do some copy pasta of that, except instead of picking up and losing money, you're going to like increase your weapon level. Then the next thing is we need to like update the UI to show current weapon level and announce change, question mark. Oh, this text is so big. Then we want to like update the bullet shooter to do 2 or 3 parallel bullets. Let's take bullets. Silent W says if you're looking for actual mechanical data, blah 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 is a great source for shmups. I think I got stars there because I've got like the auto mod running, just because I'm new to Twitch and I don't want to deal with spammers. If you were trying to post a link there, maybe just do like keywords that like I can Google. That would be good. Let's see here. Then let's see. I want to add damage reset, right? So when you take damage, you should be reset to weapon level 1. And then add weapon power up. So this will be like an actual like floating thing in the world that you can pick up. And I actually already went ahead before the stream. I went in Blender and just made this kind of like placeholder 3D icon for the weapon power-ups. So yeah, it's shmups.system/.org. Okay, yeah, great. I will take a peek. I mean, there's like a few different like sort of shmup wikis and things, and like interesting Google Docs and public links that have been floating around. But like, I'm always interested because I'm a very mid shmup player. I'm not like a hardcore shmup player. It's one of those things I'm very interested in, and I like watching people play shmups, and I like watching streams. But I'm just like total garbage at like actually trying to do it. But I love like learning to understand what I'm seeing. You know, it's like other people are with fighting games. Cool. So, step 1, we need to add the weapon level status effect to the player. So, I have an object in my game called fighter pawn. Is this text a little too small? Maybe I can, because this is going to be a little more code heavy, we can go in here and make the text bigger. I just search for font. We'll just change this to consolas. That did not, oh, that was apparently a font. That is not the font that's in my editing window. Current editor font is coding font Toby. Let's change that to consolas. And I think I also want to turn anti-aliasing on. Yeah. Okay, it still did not change the font, but this is like more readable at least, right? We'll just go with this. This is video game stuff. We can have a video gamey font. Just making sure that doesn't look too like blurry on people's screens, right? Teaksway says, such a clean Sublime Text window. I always have more tabs I do. Well, I dragged that out of actually off screen. I've got like 80 million tabs open because Sublime Text just keeps all your tabs open all the time. Cool. So in the game, I have an object called fighter pawn. This represents the player object. This nomenclature comes from Unreal. Just by the way, so like the way that I do these streams is I try to be a bit educational. Like, this is like C++ coding in the Unreal game engine, which is kind of an unusual dialect of C++. So you don't have to follow along or like understand everything. I'll just try and like generally explain sort of like in layman's terms what I'm doing. If you have any like specific questions that aren't like I'm learning to program for the first time, but are like, oh hey, I'm like starting to pick this up and I kind of get it, but I have like some specific problems, like definitely ask me and I'll like sort of go on tangents to do those things. Otherwise, I'll try and just talk through what I'm doing, and hopefully my voice doesn't get too hoarse by the end of this. But pawn is the nomenclature in Unreal for basically an object that can be moved by a player. The metaphor is like a chess player moving a pawn on the chessboard. The reason that this is a separate object from the player object is this idea that like in Unreal Tournament you can like die and then respawn, but like the guy that respawns is a different object than the guy that died because like the corpse gets left behind, right? So you're kind of constantly switching to different pawns. It subtypes this base class A pawn. The A just means this is a type of actor. Actor is like a box of stuff that you can like place into the world, right? So you have the world has several levels, the levels have several objects, the objects have several components, right? So we are changing the player pawn actor, right? So I think, yeah, basically what I want to do is I just want to check all the money that I've already written for like money, and just also add that for like what I'll call like weapon level. So I'll add a new variable here. Int means integer. That is in C++ a 32-bit integer, so it can represent a number from like -2 billion to 2 billion, which is plenty of space for what we need. So we are going to call this, I guess I'll just call it weapon level, or I guess weapon upgrade level, right? So 0 means you have not applied any upgrades yet, right? You're still at weapon level 0. Cool. Then I can check here like money, there's probably, yeah. So then I have two functions here. These are blueprint callable, which means that I can use them in scripts. So one of them is credit money when I want to give you money, and one of them is debit money when I want to take money away from you. So we also want to add another function here, which is like increment weapon upgrade level, and then I'll have another one which is like reset weapon upgrade level. So two new like actions, and I'll just put a comment here, weapon upgrade level. So we'll copy those functions, we'll pop over to the code file. We'll look at the credit money function. So you can see how money works here, right? I do just a quick check to make sure that like you're actually being asked to add money that's like greater than 0. Then I actually, this ensure, by the way, this is in programming, you often have things called asserts, which are like, if this memory has got this value in it, just like totally bail, just like crash the program because something's gone very wrong and we want to like leave the program before it does damage, right? Like it actually corrupts a file on the hard drive or something. Ensure is in Unreal a kind of like softer version of that. That's like, this shouldn't be the case, right? Like something's gone wrong if this is the case, but it's not fatal. So I'm not gonna like crash the program. But if you're running the program like a QA build, I'll put like a warning like, hey, something seems sus, like in the report from the test run. And if you're running like in a debugger, which is like when I'm developing the game, like right now, the engine here is like running in a debugger, right? So like there's all kinds of things that can happen that can basically trigger a breakpoint where the program is, the execution is suspended, it doesn't crash, it just freezes. Well, and you can like inspect the state of the program. And so what this ensure does is that like, if this case is wrong, if someone is like, I'm going to credit you -$10, which doesn't make any sense, then like I'm basically just going to get a breakpoint. I'm going to dig into that breakpoint, and I'll be able to like look at the stack, which is like the state of the code, and figure out like how did that naughty value make it into this function and fix it, right? But we see we're making sure you're actually being credited a positive amount of money. We actually, this is the plus equals operator, which is like a combined, add these two values together and store it in this value. So we're accumulating amount into money. The next thing I do here is I have this function set last heal time, which is basically on the player material. I set a timestamp. It has a bunch of timestamps. The material has a bunch of timestamps, but one of them is last heal time, which is basically like, hey, I want the material to flash, essentially, right? So if you're within, you know, half a second of the last heal time, then the player flashes. So when you get money, bloop, the player flashes like they just got healed. And then the last thing I have here is like, hey, if there's a like get widget is getting the player heads up display, right? A widget is a word for like a user interface element. So we're saying, hey, if there's a heads up display, then I'm going to store your current, this like has a copy of your current money. I'm going to store that copy into the previous amount. And we're going to set the current amount to the like current amount of money. And then we're going to fire an event into the scripts, which says like, hey, by the way, your money was credited. And so like the user interface can update and show like a new amount of money. The reason I always have like a previous and next is because sometimes it's nice to be able to like tween, like count up from like the previous to the next amount, like or like if this is handling like health and you have a health bar, then if you have the previous and the next, you can show like a red segment of like you were at this health, now you're at this health, and it like turns red and then shrinks down to your new amount. And then there's a very similar thing for like debiting money. We're just subtracting the money instead of adding it, and then we're calling this event on money debited as opposed to this event on money credited in the user interface. So let's do similar stuff here. I'm gonna copy paste my new function names. We need to put a namespace on them to remind the compiler that these functions are actually methods of the fighter pawn object. That's like a normal C++ thing. And then essentially I'm going to do a check here which says like if weapon upgrade level is greater than or equal to, I'm going to allow 2 upgrades for now. So I'm just hard coding the number 2. I could like add a variable like per player, what's your maximum upgrade level. We might put this on the weapon, like you might get the current weapon and check what its like upgradability is. But for now, this is just like a clean gold spike, like an initial implementation, like an initial prototype. So I'm just going to say that weapons can be upgraded to 2 steps, right? So I can go from a 1 shooter to a 2 shooter to a 3 shooter, right? So those are indexed at 0, right? So it'll be upgrade 0, 1, 2. Those are the 3 upgrade levels. So if the upgrade level is greater than or equal to, we're just going to early out. We're just going to return from this function. We're just going to ignore it, right? Otherwise, we're going to increment. Plus plus is the, it's a prefix operator in C++. It means increment an integer. So plus plus weapon upgrade level. And then we're going to check const auto widget. I'm so bad at typing when I'm on stream. I don't understand it. Equals get widget. So if there's a heads up display, by the way, this get widget, like we can look at it, it's just another method on the fighter pawn, right? So if there is a widget, now we need to actually go to the declaration of the widget. So that class is called uFighterWidget. U just means it's a generic Unreal object. Widget means it's a user interface element, right? So uFighterWidget. So let's look at, like I was saying, so here you can see it has previous money and current money. We are going to add previous weapon upgrade level current weapon upgrade level. And then we're going to add, there was that like on money credited, on money debited events. Yeah, here they are. You can see these are Blueprint implementable events. Blueprint is the name of Unreal's scripting language, right? So this is a scripting implementable event, right? So actually I can just copy paste both of these. We can say on weapon upgrade level incremented, and then we can say on weapon upgrade level reset. Oh my goodness, why did I get my capitals correct? This thing where you smush a bunch of words together with no spaces, but you put a like capital letter in front of all of them, that's called camel case. I think because like they write this way in the Perl programming language, and the manual for the Perl programming language had a picture of a camel on the cover, and so they call it camel case. There's a little bit of programming history for you there. But now we can go back. Zip, 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 zip. There we go. And actually, similar to the credit money, when your weapon upgrade level, I'm gonna like do that like heal flash on the player as well. I have like too many spaces sometimes. Sorry, I'm getting lost in like code style LBS. So if there's a widget, we're gonna say the widget's previous weapon upgrade level is the widget's current weapon upgrade level. The widget's current weapon upgrade level is equal to the actual weapon upgrade level on the player. And then we're going to call that event on weapon upgrade level implemented. Wonderful, great. Then our next method down here is going to be resetting the weapon upgrade level. So we're going to say if the weapon upgrade level is 0, early out, we don't need to do anything. That's what return means. Return means just like exit out of this function, immediately go back to the caller. There's like sort of two schools of thought. Like one is that you should early out of functions. Another is that you should do the opposite. You should say like if the weapon upgrade level is greater than 0, and then like branch deeper like this. I tend to prefer everything to be like just 1 or 2 indents deep, so I try to use early outs as much as possible. It's just a style thing. People get really bent out of shape about it, but it doesn't really matter that much. Oh, you know what? I just realized I usually have music playing. Oh, let's go. Wait. This is wild. I just realized for whatever reason Spotify had redirected music away from the stream and onto my phone for some reason. Okay, well, that's not cool. I thought the music was playing because I could hear it, but it was actually coming out of my phone. Ah, I'm so bad at streaming. Anyway, we got music now. That'll make the rest of the stream a little nicer. Anyway, let's see, has anybody joined? Hello, Goblin Akira. Hello, Netherways. Hello, TXK. Welcome to the stream. We're doing like, I don't know if you heard earlier, but we're doing like Shmup-Style weapon upgrades. So like, you pick up an upgrade, now you're shooting 2 bullets at a time. Now you're shooting 3 bullets at a time. You get it, now you're back to 1 bullet at a time. Cool. So, when we reset our upgrade level, then what we need to do is just set weapon upgrade level back to 0. It's pretty obvious. And if we have a widget, oh my goodness, why did Writer support that unusual name? Equals get widget. By the way, this is a fun, people who might be used to other curly brace programming languages and not C++, maybe wondering what's going on here. You can actually declare a variable inside a conditional branch like this, and then that variable is just scoped to this branch, right? It's a pretty nice way to like make a variable, check the validity of the variable, and like only use it in a block where you know, for instance, that the pointer is not null. So yeah, if we have like widget, the widget pointer is non-null. Then widget, previous weapon upgrade level is just going to be the current weapon upgrade level. The current weapon upgrade level has been reset to 0, and we're going to raise that event on weapon upgrade level reset. So I think this should all be good to run. Let me just shut down the debugger so that we can do a new rebuild. I'm going to whack F5 on my keyboard, and now is the part of all the streams that I hate the most, which is we just wait for C++. Is the slowest compiler in the world. It is a little bit nicer in Unreal because you can incrementally recompile and you can hot recompile. So as long as you didn't change any declarations, like adding or removing members or adding new events, you can just like hot recompile while the game is running. We did add those new events and we added this new weapon upgrade level. So the memory layout of the objects changed, which means I had to shut down the engine. Now I have to do this annoying rebuild, which for whatever reason on stream always takes longer. But here we go, it's compiling, look at her go. So much fun. Oof. Cool, it succeeded. I didn't type any typos. You can't see it off screen, but I've got like a loading screen now going. Oh, a whole bunch of stuff is happening. Boop, 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 boop. Excellent. Oh, goodness. So, I don't know why this, let's move it over to right here so that's not overlapping everybody. So now for my initial test, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some keyboard keys, like test keys, that will increment and reset my weapon level. So we are going to open, this is the level blueprint. This is the blueprint that's basically just for this minimal scene, which is just my like development test scene. Excuse me, you can say level blueprint. I said earlier, blueprint's the scripting language. It's a visual scripting language. So instead of like typing words, we're gonna like draw boxes and then connect those boxes with noodles. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the number keys as test keys. So I'm gonna say like keyboard 1. Like when I press keyboard 1, I'm gonna skip fighter pawn. I'm gonna get the local fighter pawn. Which is basically, I support multiplayer. I haven't actually implemented much multiplayer stuff, but I'm building it with multiplayer in mind. So there's a difference between, say, get host fighter pawn, which is like the host of the match, and get local, which is like the locally controlled player. Tikse says, I didn't know level BP was a valid place for input actions. Yeah, so what'll happen is it'll be higher priority than anything like on the pawns or whatever. So it's just an incredibly useful play. I only use it for like test stuff, but it's pretty useful. I put these in my controller and it gets super ugly. Yeah, it's like pretty gross. I don't know. I usually just put them in my pawns because none of my pawns are designed to be like player versus bot controlled. The reason, incidentally, so just to like back up and explain this for other people, player controller is the object that represents the player. Pawn represents the thing in the world that the player is moving around. So you can handle input events either on the player or you can handle input events on the pawn. And basically it's like sometimes you imagine that those pawns could be driven by a player or could be driven by an AI bot. So the like idiomatic way to make an Unreal game is to have just like a bunch of logical input commands on the pawn, and then the player controller basically maps the gamepad to those logical inputs, and then the bots, which you use a tool called Blackboard to script, will basically synthesize those logical inputs from just like an AI state machine or decision tree or behavior tree. That's what they're called. But I mean, like, I know I don't have like bot control players, so I just put the input directly on the pawn because it's like one less like thing in this like chain of command that makes everything unnecessarily complicated. But then the level itself is basically able to capture input before it goes to the player controller. Cool. So yeah, if there's a local fighter pawn, blue's check is valid. So if there is a fighter pawn in the scene, right, which is to handle the fact that, like, for instance, I can use the simulate option, and that basically runs the scene without spawning a player object. So there are, like, situations, as opposed to, like, normal play, where it may not spawn a player object. So we have to say, like, hey, is there actually a player object in the scene? If there is, then we're going to call that increment weapon combo, or not increment combo count, ooh. Increment weapon upgrade level. So, zoop. And then I will use keyboard 2 with the same sort of schmutz. And in this case, we're going to say reset weapon upgrade level. Great. Save that. So now if I enter into game and play, if I press the 1 key, the only thing we know about the weapon upgrade level now is that your player does the heal flash, right? So bloop, my weapon upgrade level went up. I press it again, bloop, my weapon upgrade level went up. Now I can keep pressing it, nothing's happening because I'm already at 2, right? But I can actually press 2 to reset it back to 0, boop. And now if I press 1, I can get 2 more flashes. Reset, I get 2 flashes. Reset, I get 2 flashes. So we know in the background, in the mind of the computer, our weapon upgrade level is being stored and being updated correctly, and we have a quick way to test it, but it's not represented in the UI yet. Aha, let's represent it in the UI. So I believe my HUD object, I keep forgetting what I name files, but I use WBP as my prefix for widgets. It stands for widget blueprint. And then I think it's just fighter HUD. Yeah. So here we go. Here's the fighter HUD as I have it currently. You can see I've like cheated a bunch. I've just like stacked every conceivable image that can show up in this corner right here. I gotta do that a better way. But this is all very like quick and dirty prototype stuff. But now, let's basically just add 3 little pips underneath the money right here. And like those pips will represent basically your weapon upgrade level. So, here I guess I'll just, I'll just copy paste some of these images. Go here, copy paste the 3rd one. There we go. There's our 3 janky weapon pips. This is total placeholder. Does not matter. Let me just make sure these are all aligned nicely. And then we can, here, let me move them 10 pixels at a time. Burp, burp, burp. Is that separating? That look kind of evenly separated. Good enough for government work. I'll change it later. This is just now, like right now, this is just for like our current situ. But let's call this image weapon level 1. We'll call you weapon level 2, and we'll call you F2 weapon level 3. So now we've got 3 pips. Up in the upper right hand corner here of the, oh, I wonder why this is not, oh my goodness, let's fill the screen here. Great. So now you can see in, by the way, this like tool that opened up for editing just user interfaces with like a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get interface. That's called UMG, or Unreal Motion Graphics, just because they've also got like an animation editor down here. So this is like a kind of like poor man's After Effects that's just like built into Unreal for doing like 2D UI animations. Anyway, we can come in here now and I can look in the upper right hand corner. You see there's two modes for UMG. It's designer mode where you're laying out stuff. Then there's graph mode. This is very similar to the like level script. Now I'm doing like a user interface script. You can already see I've got, if I like zoom out, all these red boxes are all the events, right? Like here was like the money thing, right? Like whenever money is credited or debited, I do the same thing right now, which is basically just I change the number that's in the text field, the current, what is it, the money text field, and then I flash it a color, right? So, you know, I change its color, I wait a fraction of a second, and I change it back to its normal color. Maybe we'll do a similar thing for the for these whatchamacallit pips. So I'm actually just going to make a new graph. I think this graph has gotten a little too messy. You can actually in Unreal add multiple graphs. You don't have to have like a giant bowl of spaghetti for everything. But we'll call this weapon upgrade X. Then I will add on weapon upgrade incremented and on weapon upgrade, excuse me, reset. So there's our two events. You can see it's named after what we typed way back here in the fighter widget. Right, like, so we added on weapon upgrade level incremented to the fighter widget class because this, if you look in the upper right hand here, I don't know if you can see it, but because this is a subtype of the fighter widget class, that means we have those events. That's how they made their way into this user interface. So now, let me scroll through here to find, we can get references to weapon level 1, weapon level 2, and weapon level 3. So we are basically just going to call set visibility on these. And I guess weapon level 1 is just always visible, so that one actually doesn't matter. But for weapon level 2 and weapon level 3, we basically want to get the current weapon upgrade level. And if it's greater than 0, or if it's greater than 1, we are going to select a visibility option. So that's what this select box does. And then if it's true, if the weapon upgrade level is greater than 0, then we want this to be visible. Otherwise, we want this to be hidden. Similar for weapon upgrade. This one, if it's greater than 1, true, visible, otherwise hidden. And then we can bit that and control it from, I guess we'll just do it with both of these. So I will compile this, I'll save this, we'll go back to our level. Now, as I press okay, actually, so the first things first is we need to initialize this correctly, because when I hit play, oh my goodness, this is popping up on another screen. But let me see, can I make this bigger? Yeah. But you can see it's when I hit play, it's like showing 3 pips by default. And we don't want to show 3 pips by default. So let's just add our own custom event here, which is like reset weapon upgrades. And actually, I think like 3 pips is too many. I think we only need 2. It's like upgrade 1, upgrade 2. So now 3 is gone, and we'll just recycle those around. There we go. But by default, we'll grab both of these. They should just be hidden. So boop, boop. There we go. Now we hit play. Why are they not hidden? Oh, right, because I'm not actually calling this event from anywhere. So now I can go back to when we're initialized, or whenever we also have here like when we're respawned. We'll come in here and we'll say reset weapon upgrades, which is like an interesting thing that I hadn't thought of, which is like when you take damage, the weapon should be upgraded, but also when you respawn. So let's add that to our checklist, right? Damage reset / respawn. Reset. Now that we do that, no pips are shown by default. We upgrade, we reset. We upgrade, we can't go more than 2, we reset. Great, wonderful. We love to see it. Also, a thing I think I'm gonna do is not when we are here, just to make this a little cleaner. Move some of this stuff around. Here we go. Now, when the upgrade is incremented, I actually don't just want to change the visibility. I want to play a sound. Let's play sound 2D. Let's find a sound that's fun. So I'm going to come out here. I'm going to look in my third-party folder, which has all of my third-party stuff. And we're going to filter by audio. And we're going to say sound wave. So I think actually let's look in like this is a pretty good one. We'll use that sound. So this is a fun trick for Unreal, right? If you select something here in the content browser and then you go into your script, you don't have to like search for it again. There's just this little arrow pointing to the left, which is just to use asset browser selection. Boop. And then we're also going to play a different sound when your level is reset. So let's just find, I think there was like an error sound or something. That's a little too much, but what we got? Yeah, we'll just use this. I'm trying to just pick some kind of like non-distracting sounds. So here we go. Cool. So I think, what have we done? We have added the stats effect to the player, and we've updated the UI to show it. So now let's update the bullet shooter to do 2 or 3 parallel bullets. So you can see in the game right now, when I shoot, I'm shooting 1 bullet at a time. Even though I can upgrade, I'm still only showing 1 bullet at a time. So what we need to do is we need to go into the bullet shooter object, and we need to have it check the current weapon upgrade level. And then depending on your current upgrade level, shoot 1, 2, or 3 bullets. So let's go in here. I call it bullet emitter. So you can see, actually I don't want bullet emitter component, I actually want fighter weapon bullet shooter. Here it is. you can see the bullet shooter, yeah. So this, just to sort of like show you how this works, I have an actor for all the different fighter weapons, right? So when you equip a particular weapon, I spawn the actor for that weapon and I attach it to the player. And then this implements an interface. This is like it's like an object-oriented thing. You'll see this in a lot of things like in C++ and Java. People often put the letter I in front of interfaces to let you know it's an interface. And this is basically a bunch of like, basically a bunch of events, like a bunch of like abstract methods that you're like exposing, right? So like essentially saying like, you maybe don't know anything about me, but you do know that I'm a weapon and you can interact with me the way you interact with any weapon, right? So all weapons have like, when they're enabled, when you press a trigger, when you, every, you know, update that you continue holding the trigger, when you release the trigger, if the trigger was released because you physically released the button, or if you're interrupted because you were holding the trigger and then you entered a cutscene or something. And then like a method when you're like disabling it. We also have this registered method, which just reports to you which player you were registered with, in case that matters. And so you can see like when I register, I just like save a pointer to the player. So this is that player object, the one that we added the weapon upgrade level to. So that's the thing that we can sample the weapon upgrade level from. So you can see when we press, essentially what we're doing is, just to show you how the shooter works, I have a bullet manager. This is basically like instead of having an individual object for all the bullets, I have a single object for all the bullets of a single type, right? So this is all the player bullets in a single object, which will render all of them. It's like the difference between like a particle and a particle system. Instead of having individual bullets, I have a bullet system, right? So you have a reference to the player that's shooting the weapon. You have a reference to the bullet system that contains the bullets that you want to emit into. And then I have this timestamp, which is like, hey, this is like the next time to shoot a bullet, right? And then while you're holding the trigger, right, I basically say like, hey, if the game time is, you know, greater than or equal to the next bullet time, like we passed it, right, then we shoot a bullet and we advance the next bullet time by the time between bullets. And then I also set this like, have I actually shot any flag, which I think I use that in like tutorial, which needs to check like, hey, I'm teaching you to shoot, tell me when you've actually shot something. Anyway, so try shoot here, right? We see this one is basically saying, hey, I want to get the player's velocity, I want to get the location of the muzzle, which is just like the location of this actor. And then I want to basically figure out the velocity and location of the target. So like, because I do shot leading, right? So I look under the player's reticle and I say like, hey, what is the world space location under the reticle and how fast is the object under the reticle moving? And then I basically compute this aim ahead thing here. Aim ahead is just some, it's like a thing which basically does like a time to impact calculation, right? So essentially like how many seconds are going to elapse between when I shoot this bullet and when it hits the thing. And whatchamacallit, essentially then I can basically say like, oh, the time to impact is half a second and it's moving at 10 meters per second, so it's going to be 5 meters away from where it is currently, and then I can lead your shots. I can shoot, you know, in the nomenclature of Space Invaders, I'm going to shoot where the enemy will be and not where the enemy is. And that's just because this is an arcade game and not like a hardcore hit scan shooter, so like I just automatically lead shots for you so that if you're pointing at something and you're shooting and it's not moving evasively, you're going to hit it. But if it is moving evasively, you may miss it, right? And that just becomes part of the like skill of the game. It's like, hey, maybe I shouldn't shoot this thing when it's like tacking back and forth, but I should wait until it's like standing still or coming directly at me or something. So we spawn you at the muzzle, and then in addition to picking this sort of like shot leading direction, what is happening here? So we have the direction, we can do that, and then what's going on here? Oh, I see. I'm just doing like a little bit of randomization. So yeah, but basically we get the base direction, which is the direction we want to shoot at. We wiggle that direction a little bit by the spray angle. So like there's like 1 or 2 degrees of spray, so the bullets don't all come out in an exact perfect line, but they like spray around a little bit. And then I also add a little bit of randomness into the spawn direction, the spawn location, right? So like outside the muzzle, I like move it around a little bit. That just makes it like look a little bit more interesting as they come out. I'm like moving them, this 1.0, these are in centimeters, so I'm moving it by like less than a centimeter. It's no big deal. Anyway, so, and then here's the main thing where we have that like bullet manager where we actually spawn the bullet. We say who is spawning the bullet, because like when you get hit by something, you sometimes want to know like who shot it. We are spawning it from this location. It should be like emit location, whatever. We're shooting it in this direction. We're shooting it with this velocity. And then phase, I'm just saying phase is 0, but phase is like if you want the bullet to like start a little bit ahead. That's like in case I do have a lot of like bullet hell emitters and I want them to like emit. I don't want their emission to be messed up by the frame rate, so I want to like maybe emit them like phased a little bit ahead so that they are like perfectly spaced out, so they make those perfect geometric patterns. But I don't worry about that so much for the player. I just want it like exactly on the frame. I have a timestamp on the player keeping track of the last time you shot anything, so I set that timestamp, and then I play a sound. So basically what we want to change here is instead of shooting 1 bullet, we want to have like a count, right? And the count is going to be, I want to shoot this many bullets. So, while the trigger is held, we're going to try shooting, and the amount that we're shooting is pawn, weapon, upgrade level. So now, in this try shoot, we're going to keep all of this code the same, right? We're going to pick the direction in it. I think we're going to pick this base rotation and everything. But I think here's the part where it's like for it equals 0, it is less than. Oh. It is my general name in loops, stands for iteration. While the iteration is less than the count, increment the iteration. Here's that increment operator I told you about before. You see we're doing in this loop. So this loop is like I'm going to go from 0 to 1 less than the count. So the count is 2, right? No, wait. This should be less than or equal to. Actually, no. Just to keep this simple, let's just say the count is the upgrade level plus 1, right? Because at level 0, you want to shoot 1 bullet. At level 2, you want to shoot 3 bullets. Great. Say, so I was going to say plus 1. Yeah. I figured it out. I was talking through it. And then I do have this thing. Oh, this is what this B shot anything for. If you press it and then release and you didn't actually shoot any bullets because you like tapped it too quickly, and make sure you emit at least 1 bullet, right? Although actually I should emit at least 1 like that. So, and I wonder, yeah, actually, I'm having all sorts of thoughts. It doesn't matter unless person in the future max gets confused. Future max gets confused all the time. Anyway, it's a count, so I should just say we're going from 0 to 1 minus the count. This is like a programming bullshit thing, but like instead of counting 1, 2, 3, we count 0, 1, 2 because we always like to start counting at 0 for boring reasons that don't matter. But we're going to move all of this stuff into the loop. Actually, let's not move this stuff into the loop. Let's only move this stuff into the loop. So let's like pick a consistent wiggle direction. So like they'll all get sprayed in the same random direction. They're just going to be offset like left, right. And here I'm actually going to say in clamp count, I'm going to say I can shoot up to 3 bullets. So and then I'm going to add an offset vector here. Offsets, or we'll say fixed offsets. It's going to be 3 of these. So the first bullet will be at an offset of 0. The second bullet, I guess, so in Unreal coordinates, X is forwards, backwards, Y is left, right, and Z is up, down. It's not what other game engines do, but that's what Unreal does. I think it got it from 3ds Max. Anyway, so let's just say like the offset is... Actually, I'm not going to think this out. I'm just going to add a new property, which is like fixed offset distance. I'll just say 10 centimeters for now. We'll figure out something better. So that means this is no longer const expr. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't want to do it this way. I'm going to do it a different way. Here, we're going to say you know what I'm going to do? Instead of doing because it's like, here's what I'm thinking. If there's 1 bullet, you should have an offset of 0. If there's 2 bullets, your offset should be at -half the fixed update and half the fixed update. You're shooting like to the left and the right of the center. And at 3 bullets, it should be 1 down the middle, 1 at -1, 1 at +1. So let me think about this. Yeah, I'm like, basically, the offset is going to be so we're gonna have like, I'm going to think like here, let's just think about, let me just actually, I was gonna draw this. This is like, I'm like in my head trying to think about how to say it out loud, and it's so dumb. And this is probably like super obvious, but like, let's just think about this, right? So if you're shooting 1 bullet, the offset is 0. If you're shooting 2 bullets, the offset is like -1/2, right? And then you're doing a fixed offset. Okay, so let me just grab all this stuff. So you're just going to be at 0. If you have 2, then you're going to be at like, oh my goodness. I've forgotten how to use, I've been painting in Krita lately, so I forgot all the hotkeys for, but you're going to be at -1/2, then there's going to be a distance of 1, and then you're going to be at 1/2. If there's 3 bullets, right, then you're going to be at -1, there's a distance of 1, then you're going to have 1 at 0, then there's going to be a distance of 1, and then you're going to be at 1. So I want to think about this in general terms in case I like go nut and I don't just do 1, 2, or 3. Oh, it looks like I'm like covering up the chat a little bit. But if we have n bullets, right, then like I think it's the first one here is going to be at, what is this, n minus 1 over 2, right? Because if it's 2 bullets, then n minus 1 is 1, then over 2, and it's negative n minus 1 over 2. I think that's right? Because for 0 minus 1 is -1. -1 is just, wait, is it? If we have 1 bullet, then 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 over 2 is just 0. If we have 2 bullets, then it's 2 minus 1, that's 1, 1/2, that gives us the -1/2 we want. If there's 3 bullets, then 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1, that's the -1 we want. Yeah, so this is the offset for the bullet furthest to the left, right? And then we just keep adding, right, onto that. So I'm actually not going to clamp this to 3. We're just going to do count, and we're going to let it go nut if you have like a crazy number of bullets. But we do know that like fixed offset left is going to be count minus 1 divided by 2. So then when we're figuring out like, this is offset y because y is the left-right direction. It's going to be fixed offset L plus it times that new property that we made, fixed offset distance. So then the emit location is going to be the spawn location plus, and then I guess what we want to say is like base rotation dot rotate, or what am I thinking here? Let's get yeah, we'll just say base rotation dot rotate. I don't think this is quite right, but we'll figure it out. Do I have like wiggle angle? Here's wiggle direction. And let's add a f plot wiggle orientation. Sorry. This is what happens when you write code. You end up doing little variations of all your helper functions. So we're just getting rid of this. So we like take the rotation and then we like rotate it. And then this one can just be return wiggle orientation, base rotation, spray angle. Cool. So let's go back to our bullet shooter. I'm going to say the orientation of the shot is combat util wiggle orientation, base rotation, spray angle. And then the direction here is just orientation. Oop. enter. Tikse says, I wish I'd learned enough math to understand quaternions, but I'm a linguist. They're not, I mean, it's, just, here, I will give you a geometric intuition for quaternions. So, like, imagine a wheel. Zip, zip, and it's got, like, spokes, right? And this wheel is, you know, spinning. So like, it's spinning around its axis, right? There we go. So let's draw, like, I guess in blue, I'll just draw the axis of it. So here's like the axis. Here, I'll try and make that more of like a 3D vector. There we go. So there we go. We are spinning. The wheel is spinning around that axis, right? You know, if my thumb, right, my thumb here is the axis, then my other fingers are curling around that axis, right? So here, how can I do I have something simple that I can just like spin and show you? But you know, like this pen, it's spinning, right? But it's spinning around this axis, right? So we will call this axis, usually they just say like n hat. I don't know why that's the math term for it, right? And you can imagine this spinning value here. Usually use omega for it to talk about the angular velocity, right? That's the like radians per second or degrees per second that this spin is happening. So if you multiply that by 1, you know, you just get in 1 second by what rotation has the wheel spun around that axis, right? So if you look in like a physics textbook, they're going to tell you about the angle axis vector, which is if we multiply, so you have angle axis, right? Which is if you would multiply omega times n hat, right? This is a vector, right? That's 0. It's a 0 vector when no rotation is happening, right? Otherwise, the magnitude of that vector tells you the angular velocity, and the direction of that vector tells you the orientation of the axis, right? And if, you know, you're in Unreal, it's a left-handed coordinate system, which means the direction around that axis is the finger that your left-handed fingers like curl around your thumb. If you're in a right-handed coordinate system, you just use your right hand. But anyway, the game engines that are based on the DirectX graphics usually use left-handed. So both Unreal and there we go. Anyway, now let's consider for a second, forget about 3D. Just let's do like a brief aside in 2D, right? You have like, you can think about rotations, right? Going around, and you don't have the axis, you just have like omega, like the angle, right? And so you have, in addition to the idea of like an angle omega, you also have the idea of a direction vector, right? Which is sort of like a vector which points from the origin to the direction of the angle. And if you were to write that out, the like xy here, usually, actually, let me make this blue. No, wait, yeah, no. So like, usually we say in X, use red, and then for G for Y. So these are the X and Y coordinates of that direction vector, right? So we'll call that vector V. Like the vector V is equal to, and it's going to be cosine omega comma sine omega. Another way to think about this is as a imaginary number. Maybe you learned about those in like algebra class. They seem really complicated, but they're not really complicated. All it means is that like you have two number lines, the real number line and the imaginary number line, and so any 2D coordinate can just be expressed as a sum, right? Cosine omega plus I times sine omega of how far you are along the normal number line and how far you are along the imaginary number line, right? And now, instead of having to think about this as a pair, like a vector, you can think about it as a single algebraic object, and that's easier to then do equations with, right? Because you don't have to think about parametric equations. You can just plug in this like real and imaginary part sum when you're doing algebra, right? Remember the like fundamental rule. This is very helpful. Fundamental rule of imaginary numbers is like, you know, I squared equals -1, which makes sense if you consider that like the number I is equivalent to the vector 0, 1, which is equivalent to the angle 90 degrees. So this is basically saying I squared is basically saying double 90 degrees, so 180 degrees, or like a 180 degree flip is the same thing as -1. And that's like our intuition, right? Like if you rotate a vector by 180 degrees, it's the same as scaling it by -1, right? This is essentially a very pithy way in algebra of expressing that intuition that like rotating by 180 degrees and scaling by -1 is sort of like quote unquote doing the same thing. Also, you can use this to like reduce, right? And so whatever. Anyway, you know, this is also sort of expressing the fact that like it wraps around, right? That's expressed by the trigonometry because you're using periodic functions, right? Anyway, it should be noted that for these things to represent angles, this is this imaginary number that I've written, like cosine plus sine, that's always going to be unit length. That's always going to be, the magnitude of that will always equal 1 because, you know, if you compute that right, you're going to get like cosine squared plus sine squared, you're going to get the square root of that. You can use trig identities and it's just going to equal 1, right? These are all these vectors are lying on the unit circle. To bring that, so like if I kind of like, here, select all my 2D gunk here, and then like scale it down. This was all like a 2D aside, right? If we go back to our 3D, right? You might ask, like, is there an analog for this, right? For these like angle axis vectors, like how do, like this is all just dealing with W, but now I'm not just dealing with W, I'm also dealing with n hat. How can I combine those things? Is there like some kind of sort of like more imaginary numbers, right? Like more imaginary axes. People were kind of already thinking like, okay, well, if adding I brings you from 1D numbers into 2D numbers, like complex numbers, maybe we can add J, right? And then like J can bring us from 2D numbers to 3D numbers. And people tried to come up with formalizations for J, but there was like no rule like this I squared equals -1 rule, which didn't just reduce to revealing that J was just an alias for I, or it didn't produce inconsistencies, right? Until Sir Rowan Hamilton, Scottish mathematician, figured it out while walking across a bridge and got so like juiced about it that he graffitied it onto the bridge. But he basically figured out you have to add 2 more imaginary axes. You have to add both the I axis, the J axis, and the K axis. And then these can be combined, right, in the following way. I squared equals J squared equals K squared equals IJK equals -1. And by the way, just to like prove to you I'm not lying, if we just like open up here and search for like quaternion bridge, you can see Scotland has memorialized where Hamilton did his math graffiti. Anyway, So like you see I squared, j squared, k squared, we have this idea that like, okay, if along any of these axes you do a double rotation, like you do 180 degrees, it's the same as scaling by -1. But also, if you do all three of these rotations in sequence, you're also going to get -1, right? So that's like, if I go, you know, if you have to think about it, right? If I go this way, then this way, then this way, right? I'm going from here to here, right? And it turns out this formalization, this extension of the complex numbers from 2 dimensions to 4 dimensions is entirely consistent. All of algebra works. Everything you learned in high school algebra, you can do it with these. It's just instead of, you know, complex numbers where, you know, you have, you know, why can't I write? There we go. Instead of this where you have like a plus bi, right? Now you have a plus bi plus cj plus dk, right? So what is the equivalent, right? We had this over here where we could say, hey, any rotation could be encoded in a complex number just using trig. How do I use trig to encode like this in a single complex number, right? And the answer is, it's going to look a little bit strange, but it's cosine of omega over, wait, is it omega over 2 or is it 2 omega? It's 2 omega. 2 omega, right? Let me think about this. I'm going to go crazy. This is quaternion half angles. This is quaternion half angle formula. It's either 2 omega or omega over 2. I'm going crazy. I think it's omega over 2. Wait, let's think about this. If I go halfway around the quaternion sphere, that should be a full rotation in real space. So omega in quaternion space is 2 omega in real space. Yeah, so it's 2 omega. Yeah, I was right the first time. You can do that like cosine plus, and then here we have, we're going to use n hat times sine of 2 omega. And this is going to be multiplied by I plus j plus k. So here we have a way of, just in the same way that you can create a quote-unquote direction vector in 2D for a 1D angle, here we have created a 4D quote-unquote direction vector in quaternion space that is associated with this rotation, this angle axis rotation in 3D space, right? So that's why people often say like quaternions are 4-dimensional, but they actually only have 3 degrees of freedom because, like these unit direction vectors, we're only considering all of these 4D vectors are going to have unit length, right? So they only really have 3 degrees of freedom, which are like the, you know, roll, pitch, yaw, traditional like 3 angles that we think of as rotating in 3D space. But these have the advantage over the reason that you would encode it this way instead of just using this product is the fact that, like, if you try and interpolate this product, right, if you try and rotate from one orientation to another, it's going to go cuckoo bananas, right? It's going to do all kinds of terrible stuff. Whereas if we interpolate using what's called spherical linear interpolation or n-lerping, like just lerping them and then renormalizing them in quaternion space, it is guaranteed to give you the minimum energy rotation, the smallest rotation from A to B. So that's essentially 99% of the time like what they're used for. It's also the fact that, like, with this representation, you can do everything that a rotation matrix can do. But notably, you can encode the rotation in only 3 or 4 numbers, as opposed to a rotation matrix where you need like 6 to 9 numbers, right? So it's just in memory, it's more compact. And usually in game engines, when you're dealing with lots of geometric data, like the thing that really kills your performance is how much memory you're using and not how much math you're doing, because accessing the memory is more expensive than sort of the math, right? So there is, I mean, you can like use this formula here to determine like, hey, what happens if I multiply two quaternions together? You can like spool them out and then do like, you know, algebraic FOIL, and then you can apply these rules to reduce it down to this generic form. And that will give you the quaternion multiplication rule, and that is equivalent to multiplying two rotation matrices, but in a more compact way. So that's another reason that game engines use quaternions. I realized I was like, it's really simple. I'm just going to tell you, and then you're going to know. And then I like spit all this like gobbledygook out at you. But like the main thing to remember is it's just representing this. It's just representing some angle around some axis in 3D, right? Geometrically, that's the intuition. Anyway, diversion over. Let's go back to remembering what I was doing. So yeah, I get that orientation. And so now what I want to do is I want to use that orientation in rotating a, actually all I need to do is say get axis y. I can spool this out too, right? I can say const f vector offset error is equal to the y-axis of the orientation. Then I can say spawn location plus offset y times offset dir. This is my new emitting location. We can put that here. Baby, now we're spawning up to count bullets. So I think because I added that new, like I said before, I have to restart the engine every time I add a new parameter. Bada bing, I added this new parameter. So now we need to recompile. Teek says, I mean, no, this was very useful. I'll certainly give it a revisit. This VOD has demystified a lot. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is basically it takes complex numbers and it extends them from using 2D numbers to represent a 1D rotation to using 4D numbers to represent a 3D rotation. So it's kind of like a 4-dimensional direction vector that's associated with a 3-dimensional orientation. But geometrically, in the same way that, like, you know, cosine theta plus I sine theta is just like an encoded version of just the angle theta, right? The quaternion, all of those terms, is just an encoding of the angle axis vector n hat omega. Do 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 do. Yeah, I could, if you really want to look into why the like quote unquote direction vector and quaternions use 2 times omega rather than just omega, just look up like quaternion double cover or quaternion double angles. It has to do with the fact that like multiplying a quaternion by a pure quaternion, that is like a quaternion that has no real component and just represents a 3D vector. Geometrically, that represents reflecting a vector across a plane. And you can actually represent any rotation as a double reflection, as reflecting along 2 planes, right? So it's, you reflect along the plane and then you reflect along the conjugate of the plane. And so that's, and the rotation that you get is like twice the rotation that that plane makes with the origin. So that's how it turns into like 2 theta. That's just extra details if you want to really challenge yourself. But now if I come in here and if I shoot, pop, 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 I'm only shooting 1. If I press 1 and I upgrade to 2, now I'm shooting 2 bullets next to each other. If I upgrade to 3, now we're shooting 3 bullets next to each other. I don't know if it's coming out on the stream, but that's definitely happening. I think 10 centimeters is maybe a little too close. So let's actually open up fighter weapon or main weapon. I think that was my name. Yeah, this is the basic bullet weapon. So you can see we added that fixed offset parameter. What if I use like 25 centimeters as the offset? So go to 3. There we do. We're shooting 3 bullets, baby. Then I go 2. There's 1. Now I'm doing 2. Now I'm doing 3. Cool. So that was the next thing on our checklist. We updated the bullet shooter to shoot 2 or 3 parallel bullets. And also had a digression about the manner by which quaternions encode 3D rotations. So the next thing is we want to have like a damage reset and a respawn reset. So we want to make sure when you get damaged that they reset. So to do that, I'm just going to drag an enemy out here. Let's just BP, we'll bring a chicken walker out. So now, because you see, I can like be charged up. When I get hit, I expect that to cancel things. Look how cool it is. I'm shooting like 3 bullets at a time now. So if I have like charge level 1, here, let's like bring 3 of these guys out there and see like how this changes the game. So here's 2, here's 3 of them. So this guy, if I shoot, it takes that long to blow one up. If I'm at level 1, I'm doing it faster. If I'm at level 2, I'm doing it faster. Where do you learn about vectors and quaternion rotations originally? In college. I got a degree in applied math. So, yeah. I think, wait, do I have my textbook here? I learned it here. I learned it in my university physics textbook. Anyway, so what was the next thing? Yeah, we want to, when you get damaged, that should reset. So let's go back to fighter pawn. And I think, yeah, we have our combat damaged event, right? So this is essentially the method. I think this is the only place where damage is applied, right? Yeah. So combat damaged, this is that like combat underscore is indicating the fact that the player, you know, I was talking about interfaces before, like how the weapon implements an interface. The player is implementing the combat listener interface, which is anything that wants to basically receive different types of damage. So the player can get damaged, right? So basically you have this damage event coming in. You can see what the player does here, right? Like, oh, is this coming from another player, right? We like just deflect damage from other players. Like, oh, are you currently invincible? If that's the case, then like, we're just gonna return 0, which indicates we did not handle this damage. If you're like guarding, which is like a mechanic I've been playing with, like maybe some characters have like a guard move, that would like reduce your damage. And then finally we come down here and we're like, hey, you should like apply damage to your health component. Health component's my like standard component for like anybody that has a health meter. So the player has it, enemies have it. And then like, yeah, all this other stuff. So if we get down here, right, it's because we've actually had damage applied. So you can see like this interrupts the combo count. This is also, we should say, reset weapon upgrade level. Bada bing. I also think like I have handle life cycle event. Life cycle is like basically the states that the player goes through. So you can see, here's the states the player goes through. Waiting to start the game. Oh, we're playing the game. Here's all the stuff you do when you update when you're playing the game. Oh, here's what happens when we exit playing the game. Here's if we are in a hidden state, like sometimes I hide the player during a cutscene. Oh, here's the respawning state, right? So if we enter respawning, I think this is another case where I want to say like try, or not just try, reset weapon upgrade level. Just anytime you enter the respawning state, we're going to reset your weapon upgrade level. Cool. So I did not add any parameters, so I should be able to just do like a hot recompile. So that's what I have kicked off right now. That's what this coding window is showing. Don't know why it's taking so long. Always takes longer on stream. It's weird. It makes it seem like I'm just sitting around all day. Why are you taking so long? It shouldn't take this long. I'm going crazy. Cool. So now, when we're playing, I think I can say play from current camera location so the camera doesn't keep fleeing around. Does JetBrains tell you if you actually need to kill the editor first? No, I mean, like, if you try and do a hot recompile and, like, anything that won't recompile changes, then the hot recompile window will just give you an error. But the hot recompile is actually done by Unreal. It's not done by JetBrains. It's right, yeah, Unreal has, like, a built-in thing called Live++. So anyway, if we power up, there we are, we're at like weapon level 3, so we're like killing things really easily, but then we get shot. There we go, we've like gone back down to like weapon level 1. Let's try it again. There we go. So now we have finished that guy on our checklist. Bada bing. They say, yeah, I've done very minimal C++, actually implementing your collision sliding as a test. Collision sliding is the friggin' worst. There's so many edge cases. I tried to keep it simple for the blog, but like it's so annoying. You have to keep modifying stuff to get like a real character control out of it. So now we have the last thing, which is like to add a weapon power up. Like I said, I already added, so this is gonna, I already added this 3D icon. I modeled this in Blender before we started the stream today. So we're basically gonna make it such that like these dinguses will get vacuumed into you like a money power up, like an ammo power up, and they will increment your weapon level. I had made a full blueprint movement component that had issues, trademarks, or what helped a lot. Yeah, it's, I had to do it wrong like a dozen times when I was working on Solar Ash and Abzu before I got it less wrong. It's never like perfect. It's always just less wrong enough to ship. So anyway, let's add that power up. I'll show you how power ups, these are the easiest things in the world for me to add in my game. I've got, I call them pickups, not power ups. So I have my pickup here. I have a base type for all pickups called a pickup. You can see it's an actor. And then I have a bunch of subtypes for all the different types of pickup. So I have a health pickup, I have an ammo pickup, I have a money pickup. Now we're gonna make a new one. You class abstract. Abstract means you need to make a blueprint of this. You can't just drag it directly into the level. We're gonna call that class A, whatchamacallit, weapon upgrade pickup. So public A pickup. We'll just copy paste some gobbledygook. We don't have to have any parameters on this dingus. So now let's just take, so pickup apply is a virtual method. Virtual methods are basically interface methods. So the generic pickup interface is going to say, hey, apply the pickup, and then it is going to dispatch to the weapon upgrade because it's like stashed a little pointer on the object called the vtable pointer that knows what code to run. Zip, 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 zip. Anybody who's done like generic object-oriented programming in like Java or C# knows all about virtual functions. So this was, what was the name of this? Weapon upgrade pickup. And you see the pickup helpfully tells you which pawn is doing the pickup, because remember, there can be a multiplayer game, so you have to know who's picking it up. And so that pawn, we just want to say increment weapon upgrade level. Just that function that we wrote. Bada bing, that's it. That's all the code. Look how easy that was. Waiting for the build to go. Waiting for it to go. And then basically once we get back into the code, we're going to take one of the other pickups that already exists. We're going to duplicate it and then we're going to modify it. Right? That's a lot easier than building stuff from scratch. So yeah, I think I'm just going to take the health pickup and then replace that. So if we come in on wheel here, zip that over. Let's press F10 to give us all of our side panels. So I'm going to take this BP health pickup, Control D, duplicate that. We're going to call it BP pickup weapon upgrade. So let's go inside of here. You can see what the pickup has is it has a particle system and then it has a mesh, right? So first thing we want to replace this mesh with the new one that I created, which is the weapon level. Zip. Looking good, looking sexy. And then you see we're subtyping health pickup. We actually want to subtype the, I don't know why this window keeps every time, like undocking or whatever. But yeah, so now we can come in here and you say file, and then you say reparent blueprint. We actually want weapon pickup, or pickup, wait, weapon upgrade pickup. There we go. Reparenting may cause data loss, blah, blah, blah. We don't care. Great. So now we have like a weapon upgrade pickup. I think I should be able to just drag these into the world. I forget if that actually works. Or, no, that doesn't work. Oh wait, that was just the mesh. That wasn't the new pickup. So if I drag this out here, does this just work, or do I need to like spawn them? Actually, I need to spawn them. That's right. So let me see. I spawn them through a thing called the pickup manager. This one just has a, yeah, I can say spawn pickup. So I'm just gonna make a test object here that I'm gonna call a like weapon pickup spawner BP test weapon pickup spawner. And all this dingus is gonna do is on begin play, they're gonna say get pick, what is it? Get fighter game mode, get pickup manager, and then spawn. Wait, is this method not oh, beans. Do I have spawn pickup anywhere else? Enemy unit, loot box. Oh, loot box has a loot type. Let's do that. That seems a lot easier than just making a test object for now. So let's duplicate this loot box health and call it loot box weapon upgrade. We'll come in here and we'll say we want to spawn a weapon upgrade. Bada boo. We'll put a few of these boxes out here. So now we can play. Let's make this a bit bigger. So we can shoot this. It spawns. Oh, it spawns like a bunch of them. I think we only want, oh yeah, loop count. We want that just to be 1. Is this like some type of loot box? Okay, whatever. So there we go. We spawn it. Now we're doing triple bullets. Now we're unstoppable. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Now I do want to like juice it some more. Like, because I think to make this more of like an arcadey experience, I like it when it's like, there's like a big screen that's like telling you like weapon upgraded. So I think I've got a UI. What do I do for time extensions? Let me look that up. Fighter scenario, time attack, add scenario time, HUD, show warning, time extension. Okay, so I do have a method. So let's actually go to that weapon upgrade blueprint that I made. And so when it was picked up, we're going to say get fighter HUD. And then I have this method show warning. Oh, I want is showing warning. I want. Wait. Do I not have like is show warning not exposed to blueprints? Ah, it wasn't. Let me expose that. New function. Blueprint callable. Okay, we have to reboot the engine one more time to get this. But basically, my HUD show warning method is just like, who made, TV Tyler says, who made the sound effects for Nightshift? Excellent question. Her name is Catherine Stark. She goes on the internet by Delta Haas. Let me just find her website. I'm just getting Catherine Stark from Game of Thrones. Wait, we follow each other on Blue Sky. I can find her info there. Here she is. Catherine Stark at Delta Haas, DELTAHAAS.bluesky.social. And then, what else have we got? Yeah. Looks like she has deltaxmachina.com. But here she is. Catherine Stark, sound designer. She's great. You can see a lot of work that she's done. She does a lot of sci-fi stuff. She's a big sci-fi nerd. Excellent follow. Zip. Now coming back. So I added that show warning function. And basically, let's move this back into place. So basically what show warning does is it shows like a big like, watch out, whoa, get ready, whoa, mini boss incoming. And we're just going to use it to like blare the klaxons and say like weapon upgrade. So what was that? Weapon HUD, it was weapon upgrade pickup. So when you pick this up, we're going to say show warning. Make literal text. We're going to say, you know, weapon upgrade. This is actually a little, you might pick these up if like you're already fully upgraded, so maybe not great, but whatever, we'll figure it out. Weapon upgrade. It's too over the top, but I don't hate it. I'll make something better, but at least now players know like, I think that they can actually be separated out more. I think, let's look at main weapon, basic bullet. Maybe instead of 25 centimeters, we go 40 centimeters. That may be fun. Here, let me make this window bigger again for folks at home. We can go give ourselves updates. Yeah, it says weapon upgrade, even though I'm already fully upgraded. So that's not the right place to be showing that effect. Yeah, I think probably for these pickups, if you're already fully done. Yeah, actually, that's an interesting thing. So like what happens if you get like a weapon pickup, but you're already fully upgraded? I think in that case, maybe we'll just give you money. So yeah, let's implement that. Let's make that like the last thing that we do here. So I'm gonna update my fighter pawn methods, the weapon upgrade. I'm gonna make these return booleans. That's gonna tell you whether it actually succeeded or not. So now these are gonna be return false. These are gonna be booleans. Boolean just means like a true-false value. And down here, we're gonna say return true. Return true. Now we're gonna go to the pickup, and let's put money about. We'll call this int fallback money amount, right? I guess we'll give you $10 by default. So now we can say if we didn't upgrade your weapon level, then we can credit you with the fallback money amount. So let's just test this real quick. Blueprint rewrite should not be used on private members. Uh-oh, what did I do? Oh, I put public amendments. I don't know how your hit detection works. Is it possible for widely spaced bullets to avoid small targets? Yeah, I mean, like, my bullets are like, I mean, it's basically the bullet manager does an async trace, which means it queues up a bunch of trace and then gets their results the next frame. That's how you do lots of traces without incurring like a big CPU cost, because it can batch them. And basically I take like the previous position of the bullet and the next position of the bullet, and I sweep a small sphere. So each bullet has a radius, but I sweep a small sphere along that. So I think the bullets are only like 5 centimeters or something in size. I say centimeters. You have to pretend that the robots are human size, because like Unreal is all designed around human size stuff. So these are in-game centimeters, not whatchamacallit, like actual world centimeters, right? I think actually like a centimeter in the game is like a decimeter. I think it's 10x in like the quote-unquote real world. But let's just come in here, and I'm going to get rid of these guys, so they're going to be too confusing for this test. But now I just want to come in here, fully upgrade myself, and then with these I should get money instead. Okay, it's still saying weapon upgrade. let's get rid of that. That's ridiculous. Especially because we don't know if you weapon upgraded or got money, so that should just be triggered somewhere else. But now we can come in here, get fully upgraded, and then if I do these pickups, I just get money instead. So. I wonder why. I guess I don't do sounds when you just generically get credited with money. I should add that as well. But I mean, yeah, it did update the UI and all that. This is good. I think this is like a fully, we can go back to our checklist, look at that. We did everything on our checklist. We're done, we can ship the game now, LOL. So yeah, I think this is pretty good. Yeah, we're coming up on 2 o'clock, which is, you know, the 2-hour mark where my I start losing my voice. But Johnson says, awesome, take my money. I'm trying to. I'm literally trying to take everybody's money. Go on Steam, wishlist it, tell your friends. Yeah, so I do this every Friday, noon to 2 Pacific time. I've fallen behind, but I've got like 3 that I need to post to the YouTube archive. If you want to go back and watch all that gobbledygook about quaternions again later. Additionally, it'll be on the standard like 1 week Twitch VOD after we're done here. My name is Max. The game is Nightshift Galaxy. You can just Google that, Nightshift, one word, Galaxy. You'll find the Steam page. You can also look me up on Twitter or Blue Sky. We've got official accounts. I've got personal accounts. I do like sizzle reels. If you're in Twitch, you should be able to find the Discord link where you can like, I've got like an ongoing AMA thread if you've got other questions about the game. I've also got like a devlog where I go into a little bit more detail about what I'm doing day to day. And yeah, this was fun. I think this is a good direction for the game. I've been trying to think of how to get more weapon variety, and I think because like I was like working last week on having like a shotgun and a rifle versus like a machine gun, but I think like giving all the like main weapons like upgrade levels is like a lot easier than having to make like an order of magnitude more just like types of weapons and weapon variations. So yeah. This is good. I was pretty excited. Thanks for everyone stopping by. Thanks for asking questions. And yeah, cheers. Have a good one. Okay, I guess. I'm so bad at doing sign-offs on these. I never watch Twitch streamers all the way to the end, so I don't know how they do them. But yeah, this is great. Love y'all. Bye.